A college professor with an apparent clown fetish offered to pay students in return for allegedly letting him paint their faces. Well, now he's out of a job. Josh Tokosh posted offers like this one on social media. Need some extra cash? I will literally pay you to let me practice Halloween makeup on you. But in an interview with a student journalist at Nicholls State University, he claimed it was a class assignment.
And that's an assignment in one of my classes where they actually come up with their own face paint and makeup design inspired by a culture, and they implement it.
But in his own social media posts, it suggests this was more than a class assignment. In one of these posts, he writes, "I have a face paint fetish and convince cute girls in my classes to let me paint their faces. I'm not very good, but there's something about applying the thick white clown makeup on them that I like. I started getting more and more adventurous, painting one's entire body white." Well, he taught at 3 different colleges before some student journalists at Nicholls State University exposed him. He resigned the same day the school paper published its story about him. And joining us now are the student journalists at Nicholls State University who reported this story, Sally Ann Torres and Hannah Robert, also Chris Quintana, a reporter for USA Today, bringing this to a national level. Thank you all for being here. And Sally Ann, we'll start with you. How did your team come across this story?
So my team came across it by a staff writer at the time had mentioned it, that like a friend of a friend told him about it. And at the time when we first heard about it, we didn't think much about it. But then a few weeks later, another staff writer who was in Tokosh's class got the email that he had sent out to his entire class. And that's when we started looking into it.
What did the email say to the entire class?
The email was talking about how the school had asked him to not renew his contract. And he said it was due to a grade inflation task force and that he was too easy of a professor, or he was giving out too many A's.
Interesting. I mean, Hannah, what was the most troubling part of this story as these details started to come to light?
I mean, it was just how crazy he was into the facade when we interviewed him. He was fully into this as a class assignment. And girls in this class, where they thought it was just an innocent assignment, they did a Louisiana makeup look. They thought it was completely innocent, but it turned out on one side, it wasn't.
I mean, Chris, I want to bring you in here. Does this also bring up some red flags about the lack of background checks when it comes to university staff? I mean, I understand that he was a grad student. Did that layer make it more difficult? Because it's disturbing to hear that he made it to 3 universities before this was finally exposed.
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for having me on. We found in trying to reach out to the universities where he had previously taught, which included Kent State and Northern Illinois, in trying to get answers about, what was their background process, what did they do? They didn't tell us. They cited this law known as the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and that's commonly referred to as FERPA in education circles, but it allows universities to say essentially anything about a student. They don't have to disclose that information. There are difference of opinions on what universities can disclose. We talked to a FERPA expert who said some of our questions could be answered by them. But what was also interesting in Northern and Nicholls, we asked them specifically if they had requirements for checking social media, and they did not. I think it's really interesting to see that sort of disconnect between the digital natives and sort of this older generation. Sally and Anna were able to find this information really quickly online, and it was all publicly available.
Wow. I mean, Sally Ann, I want to go back to you. Did you speak with any of the young women that he painted, that he did this to? What was their reaction to all of this?
We both spoke to a few, and it was, when we were speaking to them, as in getting the story together, almost all of them had the same kind of, they thought it was only kind of happening to them, or they were the only ones who had that interaction with him, not realizing that it was multiple other women.
Yeah. Why would they do this? Were they promised anything in return? It says monetary in those posts.
So what the ones we had talked to, they were promised better grades, passing grades. They were promised bonus points, even if they already had a passing grade. That's what they were promised.
Chris, what is next in all of this? I mean, I wonder if this crosses any legal boundaries and if you've done any looking into that, or, you know, if this is simply a black mark against him, and now that this has come to light, he will likely not be hired at another educational institution.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say exactly his hireability moving forward from here. You know, prior to this story coming out, his name was already attached to the Nicholsworth story, and so now we have this story out. So I think that it may be challenging for him. You know, as far as repercussions, I think it's going to be dependent on kind of the young students who interacted with him. You know, if they were told one thing and you know, now they see their images online in a completely different capacity, I can imagine they would be frustrated, and I don't know if they would seek legal venues or not, but you know, I would be frustrated, certainly. And I do want to just speak to the point of Cash. You know, those Facebook posts that we saw, those are coming from Kent State. So that was back in 2017. And we were, you know, I actually spoke with some students who were offered that cash, and they were just, you know, at the time even, it was very surprising to them.
Wow. Okay, great reporting, guys. Sally Ann Torres, Hannah Robert, Chris Quintana, thank you so much, and for bringing this to light, and please stay with us and keep us posted on this story.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.